Niemeyer. And the same I did also, I flew to Finland, and then I went to see the buildings of Sarin, and I was in that mood in those years. But the Carrera is another story, and you want to know why we created the Carrera. Well, basically, my father and his brother who ran the company before I joined, my father was the creative part. My uncle was a very good-looking and tall and very excellent sales person. He took care of the sales. My father was the creative guy. And they had the habit, my father had the habit to create names, to give names to products, which my grandfather started. He created the micrograph, the microsplit, the time of trip, classics which are today have been retaken up by Tate Heuer. And my father created names like Otavia, Automobile Aviation, Seafarer, Ringmaster, Twin Time, etc. So we had this habit of creating names. And when I was in Sebring in 1963, I was invited by the Sports Car Club America. We had lent them chronographs to do the timing in Sebring. And so I was invited down, and I rented a car and drove across Florida and went to the event. And at that event, there was a very interesting mixture of people, of drivers. Partly there were gentleman drivers, like the Pop's Brewery guy, or Paul Newman would be racing, right? And then there were professionals. And the professionals, amongst the professionals, there was the Ferrari. The importer of Ferrari in New York had put at the disposal of two young boys a Ferrari, which I was amazed. Here these kids are racing, they're allowed to have a Ferrari with the factory support and everything. And those were the Rodriguez brothers. And so since I was a Ferrari fan then already, I was in the pits with the Ferrari team and the parents of these two boys. And so the parents explained to me that they were so happy that their boys were too young to have raced in the Carrera Panamericana. And so I heard that name, and then I thought, oh, terrific name. It's a sexy name. It has power. It's in all languages. It means career, road. It has a competitive spirit, and it fitted our brand philosophy beautifully. So the tragic part of it, the parents of these Rodriguez boys who told me this, they were with me in the pits watching their sons. And one of the sons, the 19-year-old one, killed himself the same year in a race. And the second, the brother, 21 years old, killed himself in another race 2-3 years later. Right? So there was a lot of emotions for me also in that name. And so I decided to create a watch with the Carrera. But since I was in this state of mind that you have just described, I wanted very clear lines. And if you can you put on the one old, the original Carrera? No, anyway, that's mine. The original Carrera had no special things. They just had a pure line, and I was helped by there's also an invention somewhere in the new product, and in this case, somebody had invented the tension ring. The crystals in the watches were plastic in those years, not sapphire like now. And the plastic crystals had a tendency to get porous and to leak over the time. And so this guy invented a tension ring you put inside of this crystal, which would then push against the side of the case. I'm sorry to be technical, but it's quite important because here you suddenly have a bezeled tension ring which was empty. And I was the first one in the world to use that bezel to bring the 1/5 of a second in there and to have a beautiful, clear, empty dial. And it was a success because we had no figures, just clears, 12 bars, and the success was quite excellent. It was well received because until those in the late 50s, see, chronographs were used during the war, mainly by the artillery officers who had to coordinate their attacks, and they had telemeters and telemeter dials who were like a spiral, so they were not good looking, those watches. So I wanted all these divisions away, including the tachymeter, but then the market forced us to put on a little tachymeter, but that's another matter. So I'm very proud in a way that my name for a watch lasted 50 years, and I'm very happy with the new model we launched for the 50 years I was involved. Actually, I first said I'm going to stop when I'm 80, so I created a Carrera for my 80th birthday, which you might know or not know, which I'm wearing here. And then they realized that the next year was 50 years Carrera, so then I participated in the creation of the 50-year Carrera, which you see exposed there, and which I'm wearing here. Right. So, let me see if I want to add something. Basically, that's all I want to say right now. And since it's my last performance, if I may use that word, in England, I'm retiring definitely on the 18th of November. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask.